I come to you today to discuss Alzheimer's disease. It is estimated that over 5 million Americans suffer from this debilitating and undignified disease. Alzheimer's is now the sixth leading cause of death and the fifth with individuals over the age of 65. Alzheimer's takes away the ability to recognize your family, friends, to speak, to feed yourself, to bathe yourself, and go to the bathroom by yourself. As of now, there is no cure. We know what it does. It takes away the ability to communicate, your ability to think, and process thoughts. Your body could be in the best of health physically, but your brain is not. It not only affects the individuals with Alzheimer's, but it impacts the entire family, especially the caregiver. There are 7 stages of Alzheimer's, and I have witnessed 6 of them. My father-in-law was diagnosed 3 years ago, and I have watched his health deteriorate with each month. Stage 1. At this time, there is no impairment, but plaque begins to form and the brain begins to shrink. This can start as much as 20 years before the actual signs of the disease show symptoms. Stage 2 starts when there's a mild forgetfulness. Most people think it's just age. For instance, when you walk into a room, you forget why you're there or what you're looking for. And because of this, Alzheimer's is not diagnosed. Stage 3. This is the beginning of mild decline. A person's short-term memory begins to fade, easy tasks begins to become difficult, and the change in personality begins. Moodiness seems to be appearing more often. My father-in-law, who was always a happy and a fun-loving person, started showing signs of anger and frustrations that were not normal. I remember the first time I ever heard him cuss, I was totally taken back. I believe my father-in-law was in this stage of the disease when both of my in-laws went shopping one day, and when they went to drive home, my father-in-law could not remember which way to turn out of the parking lot. He also drove off the road and hit a business sign. At this time, I feel my mother-in-law and my family were in a denial about what was happening, and he refused to go to the doctor. Stage 4. Moderate decline, which includes increased short-term memory loss, unable to do small tasks, and the repetition of stories or questions. I remember at Christmas about 4 years ago, my father-in-law would repeatedly tell the same story about him and his brother. It was a story about when they went camping out by the lake, and he had specific details about the story, and he kept repeating them. The thing was, the story, he was just a boy, but he talked as though it was just last week. And then within about a month, he was in another accident, and when the officer actually stopped to ask him how old he was, he replied he was 35. At this point, the family had to face the fact that he could possibly have dementia. And being in the healthcare field, I ended up contacting the healthcare organization that I worked for to try and see if we could find some help, and they offered services that included Alzheimer's. And a social worker was sent to the home to help my mother-in-law try to get support and information on the disease. Now, my mother-in-law never worked. My father-in-law did. So their income was pretty tight, yet they did not qualify for Medicaid. So to try and get help inside the home was very difficult, and I forced my mother-in-law to take care of my father-in-law. Stage 5. The person suffering from Alzheimer's is unable to drive now, can't perform daily hygiene tasks, and they get fixated on one subject, and now they're stopped saying their family and friends' names. At this point, my father-in-law stopped shaving. He could not bathe on his own. He started urinating wherever he was sitting. His conversation stopped, and he began to drag his feet like a shuffle and had trouble with balance. Then he would get in and out of bed all through the night. He was very agitated and angry. At one point, he pushed my mother-in-law down And then he just went outside and started walking down the road. When my brother-in-law went out to get him, he said he was going home. But this home was when he was a child. At this stage, I knew my father-in-law was in a way not my father-in-law anymore. And I know this story might be amusing to some of you, but my father-in-law, he wore a toupee. I had never seen him without it. He'd either wear a toupee or a ball cap. I think he actually thought that I didn't know. And my husband and his siblings hadn't seen his dad without it since they were a child. One day, my husband and I went to pick up his parents to take them to a wedding. And when my father-in-law came out of the house, my father-in-law did not have the ball cap on or his toupee. And I felt really sad. And I knew that he not only didn't know who we were, but he didn't know who he was. He would have never have done that. And it broke my heart. Stage 6. This is the time when the person suffering does not know their surroundings. They do not recognize familiar faces. They do not know the names of objects or how to use them. They need assistance with daily tasks such as dressing, bathing, and eating. And if the person does speak, their words are mumbled and do not make sense. They can pace and get agitated, and sundowning becomes much worse. I believe this is the stage my father-in-law is in now. It has affected my mother-in-law's health. She is currently on medication for anxiety and depression, and she already suffers from rheumatoid arthritis, which makes it difficult for her to care for her husband. And my husband goes over there quite frequently, and when he comes home, I can see the sadness in his eyes. Stage 7. This is the final stage. This person needs complete care. They cannot walk, they cannot hold their head up, and they can't swallow. And this is the stage that ends their life. Now, I'm not looking forward to this stage for my father-in-law or my family. And as a mother, the thought of me not knowing my son's names is just incomprehensible. And as a wife, I'm afraid my husband will get the disease too. His great aunt suffered from it, and now his father. Now, it has been said that in 2014, this disease has cost the United States over $214 billion. And this makes Alzheimer's the most expensive disease in this country. And it has been projected by the Alzheimer's Association that the number of individuals suffering from this will increase to 16 million Americans by the year 2050. Now, I know President Obama added the $50 million to help with research in the year 2012. But it's 2017, and we must continue to fight for a cure and fight for the caregivers. As this country approaches the fact that the baby boomers are either at the age when they can start showing signs of this disease or will be soon, we must find a cure. We must be able to reduce the risk of getting this disease. We must also support the family members and the caregivers. We must eliminate this disease. We need more money for research, and we need money to support the caregivers. As I speak with you now, the chances of one of you having Alzheimer's, your spouse, or parent is pretty great. Are you ready to accept this, or do you want to fight? Thank you.